Welcome to our 107th weekly webcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way the call works is it goes from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. And I'm so sorry I had some technical issues this morning. That's why we're a couple minutes late. But what you can do is within 24 hours of the call being completed, you can go to the description field of the YouTube video, and then you can click on the questions to get immediate answers. I got to mute that. Hold on a second. Thanks. So again, within 24 hours of the call being completed, what you can do is you can go to the description field of the YouTube video and just click on the questions to get immediate access to the answers. Again, I apologize for the technical issues. You'd think after 107 weeks I would have nailed it, but clearly not. All right, so what I'll do is this. I'm going to go through the questions that were pasted in the previous webcast that went down 5 minutes ago. And then I'll go through the ones that you enter right here on this webcast. So please type your questions now. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I appreciate it. All right. So the first question is from Ray, who's saying, hi, Chris. Thank you for shining in the darkness. My pleasure. Thank you. I'm not shining very nicely today as I've had technical issues. I apologize for that. And Ray has a couple questions. The first question is, how can one get invited to become a board member of an NGO or a board member as a whole, meaning for any company? Yeah, it's a great question. So there's two ways to get onto a board. One way is to have a lot of experience in a specific sector or a specific charitable sector as well, so that you can get invited to join that board. And the other way is by being an investor, a big investor. And so what happens is with venture capital firms, when they invest a lot of money in a startup, they have a fiduciary duty and a fiscal responsibility to their investors to report how that investment is doing. As such, they get invited to join the board of that startup. And when it comes to not-for-profits, instead of being a big investor, it could be a big donor or somebody that's got a lot of experience in the sector. But in either case, you have to network a lot to get onto boards. And so I have a book you can get for free on my website, Haroun, at harounventures.com. It's a book on how to network. It's a couple hundred pages long, plus a couple hours of free YouTube videos. And it will teach you everything you need to know in order to network, to get that dream job, get on a board, for example, or to get potential customers. So thank you very much for the question. I appreciate it. And give me 1 second. I'm just going to do a quick little technical check here to see if we got questions coming through. Okay, it looks like we're okay. All right. Again, I'm so sorry about that issue. Again, you'd think that after 107 weeks I would have nailed it, but clearly I haven't. All right. Let me just do a refresh here. 1 second, please. Okay, cool. All right. So the next question is from Ray, who's asking, how do I behave at an event when I want to build as many connections as possible, but you don't know in advance who is going to be there, so you can't prepare specifically? Yeah. And then you wrote here, how should I react to those people who want to connect over LinkedIn with me, but they haven't written anything? Yeah, a couple questions there. Okay. So I usually do a lot of preparation before I go to an event or before I go to meet with people in a certain company. If I know who's going to be there, I look at their Twitter profiles to see who they follow and what companies they follow, what sports teams they follow. And by the way, this is a minor league baseball team from Montreal. And it was actually the minor league baseball team that Jackie Robinson played for. He's one of my heroes. And this is his hat here, number 42, which has been retired in all ballparks in the United States. But yeah, I usually find out what interest people have. It might be a love for baseball or a love for sports. And even when I go to a job interview, if I'm not exactly sure who's going to be interviewing me, I go to LinkedIn and get a list of people that work in that company, in that specific department, in a certain region. And I do a little bit of research on them just in case they show up to the meeting, because every battle is won before it's been fought. And when you strike up a conversation with somebody, don't jump right into business. Bond before business, because relationships are always more important than product knowledge. Let me move on to the next question here. Thank you. All right. Next up, I've got Casey, who's saying, "Good morning, Chris. Hope you and your family are well. Likewise. Many companies do not advertise salary, benefits, vacation details, etc. If this is the case, do you think it is best to ask about this when they ask if you have any questions at the end of the first interview?" Yeah, great question. Never ask that question in the first interview. Okay. In the first interview, you want to ask them questions about the company, about the corporate culture, about teamwork, etc., and show how passionate you are about that company and prove to them that you're interviewing for something you're passionate about and not a job. When it comes to benefits, remuneration, salary, vacation, etc., only ask after you get the job offer, because you don't want them to know that the only reason you're interviewing is because you're interested in making a lot of money. You want to make it look like you're passionate about that role and that this is something you do in your spare time or if you're on vacation. So the bottom line is always ask at the very, very end of the entire interview process after you've received the job. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, please tell us more about what you offer on Amazon Prime, which courses, etc. Yeah, I offer a couple of courses on Amazon. I put a bunch up a few years ago, and then I actually stopped doing so. Partially because Amazon, it's a great marketplace, and Amazon called me back in 2016 and said, "We're going to launch an education platform, and we'd love for you to be in the press release." And I was excited at first. And then I realized that Amazon doesn't market any products. You know, maybe their own, their Echo product, their Kindle, etc., or their Ring doorbell products. But it's the loneliest place in the world is page 2 of Google search rankings and on Amazon at times. Because again, they don't market your product. But there's other companies like Udemy, for example, that will market your product. And so people don't realize that Udemy is like Google in EdTech and everybody else is Bing in the EdTech sector, because they will market your product as well, which makes it an amazing platform. So I only put up a couple of courses on Amazon. I am on Amazon Prime, a couple of videos, my entire MBA in one course, and 1 or 2 other courses, but I don't think I'll be adding many more in the future there. Thank you, though. Okay, next question is, what are your current top 5 marketing platforms to help you gain exposure? Yeah. So by far the first one is YouTube. So YouTube is the only gold rush in history that doesn't cost you money to make the product. And it's the only gold rush in history where you can get access to potentially billions of customers immediately for free. All you need to have is a cell phone. That's it. That's it. An internet connection. And you can stream, you can create your own vlogs, etc. And I have a course called the Complete YouTube course, which is available on Udemy. I taught that course with Sasha Stevenson, who's an internet sensation. She has over 100 million views on her YouTube channel in Indonesia. So I would say by far the number one social media platform is YouTube. Second for me is LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn is the de facto business networking platform. I absolutely love it. I post to LinkedIn every day, and I have for many, many years. It's a great way to network and find potential customers or business partners or a job, etc. So that's the second one. The third one for me is Twitter. I repurpose a lot of my content, a lot of my videos that I do on this weekly call, not only for my daily vlogs on YouTube, but also on Twitter and LinkedIn, little videos. So I like Twitter a lot. It's good for bite-size information. You can't obviously upload paragraphs and paragraphs of data, but I enjoy it because less is more. The fourth one for me is Instagram. And Instagram is something I've just kind of started recently. I did an Instagram live interview with Udemy on their channel recently, which did pretty well actually compared to my other social media platforms. And the future is visual and the future is video, which is why Instagram is so successful, especially Instagram video now. The last one for me is podcasting. And so if you go to my website, harouneducation.com or harounventures.com, same thing. If you scroll down to the bottom of my website, I launched a podcast. And the way I look at, and I didn't mention Facebook, by the way, on purpose, because I just don't trust that brand. I don't. But the best way to think about creating content is to repurpose content, similar to what Nintendo has been doing for decades. So Nintendo, with the Nintendo 64 and the 8-bit and the 16-bit console, they made these great titles, Mario, Zelda, etc. And they repurposed them on their most recent platforms as well, namely the Switch, the Wii U, and the Wii before that. And it's a very, very high margin product for them because they repurpose older content. And so the fixed overhead is done. I do the same thing when it comes to social media, and I recommend you do so as well, which means you create content in one place and then you repurpose that content on other platforms. So what I do with this weekly call is after it's been completed, then what we do is we create micro content from it, and we'll repurpose vlogs every day that drop at 9 a.m. my time on YouTube, as well as on Instagram and Twitter, and then my podcast as well. And the podcast is just a voice or audio-based version of this entire call. And if you have additional questions about social media exposure, etc., please let me know. But if you're just getting started and you don't have time to populate your vlogs on many platforms or your content, you can use a product called Hootsuite.com. And I'm never compensated by anybody. I'll never sell out. I want to humbly help. But Hootsuite is spelled HOOTSUITE.com. And it will allow you to schedule up to 30 social media posts in advance per month for free. And then there's a premium service you can pay for as well. Okay. Next question I've got is from Manas, who's saying, good morning, my dear mentor. I hope all is well. Likewise, thanks for joining us. And then you wrote here, first of all, thank you for vlog number 777. It's awesome to see you every day. Thank you. And then you said, I hope I'll be commenting on your vlog soon. Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And so what Manas is referring to are my vlogs, which I publish every day. I'm on number 777 right now, which means I've been doing it for 777 days in a row nonstop. It's been a lot of fun doing so. Thank you. I appreciate all the support. And then Manas is writing here, it's been a busy week. I completed the course shooting and editing, and I was supposed to launch it today, but the documentation caused a delay. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And if anybody wants to publish a course on Udemy, let me help you work smarter and not harder by using me and the mistakes I've made so that you can create a course as well. And the best way to do this is to go and just do a search. And I'll go here into incognito mode. So just do a search on my name and Udemy. Okay. And once you're on my profile page, just click all the way to the end, meaning number 4 here, I guess. And you'll see I have a bunch of free courses. So one of the courses is called 40 Tips on How to Make a Great Online Course. And another one of the courses is called Another 40 Tips on How to Make a Great Online Course. And these two courses are based on 80 mistakes, 40 in one course, 40 in another course, 80 mistakes I've made creating courses. And I want to share it with you because I think that everybody can work smarter and not harder by learning from my millions of mistakes I've made teaching online. This will help you with getting up and running really, really quickly, setting up your video, audio, writing your content, using props, etc. So check it out. Again, there are 2 free courses. One is called 40 Tips on Making a Great Online Course, and the other one is called Another 40 Tips on Making a Great Online Course. And if you have questions while you're taking these courses, you can either ask in the course or what you can do if you can't reach me, as sometimes I do get a lot of questions in my free courses, you can ask me live on this weekly call. And I'm here to humbly help you get your content up and running as quickly as possible. And thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Next question I've got here. And give me 1 second. I'm just going to do a quick sound check, an audio check, and I think we're good to go. Okay, great. And if you're just joining us from the previous webcast, I'm so sorry about the technical issues that I had this morning. If you typed your question in the previous webcast this morning, I will be answering those as well as ones that are typed right here. Thanks everyone for your patience. Again, after 107 weeks, you'd think I know what I'm doing, but the older I get, the better I was. So, okay. Okay. And next up, Albus is saying, "Hey, Chris, I've been very busy recently. I'm so excited to be back here. Thank you and welcome back. Always great to have you." Next question is from Casey, who's saying, "Many have said that quarantining during COVID made them realize they didn't need so much stuff. How do you think priorities will shift and change going forward in lifestyle and buying choices?" Yeah, it's interesting you say that because when I look at my kids, and I have three boys, it's a lot of fun, but they don't have as many toys or as much stuff as I did growing up because they own digital rights to stuff in the cloud. Same thing with video games. They don't actually buy DVDs. They actually just download the games or stream them online. Same thing with music. For me, I had a bunch of CDs on a shelf when I was a kid and tapes and records. Yes, I am that old. But my kids own a lot of digital content. And so given the fact that a lot of us are working from home and we're comfortable using Zoom to work online, I think that from a clutter perspective, we're all going to be setting up our own studios at home and trying to use as little equipment as possible. And if I can help you create your own online presence, please let me know. Or if you have any questions about how I built my studio, let me know. Anybody can do it. All you literally need is an iPhone or an Android handset and a couple of lights. It's that easy. It's that easy. And if you don't believe me that it's that easy, what you can do is you can go to Udemy's Instagram profile and do a search on an interview they had with me. In that interview, all I used was my iPhone and my iPhone earbuds. And as Seth Godin said, the brilliant marketer, you already have everything you need to build something far bigger than yourself. Okay. All right. And next up, Manas is saying, "I'm going to be a part of the instructor community, which you're leading on Udemy or part of." Yeah, thank you. And then you wrote, "You're my senior as the Udemy instructor with tips and tricks." Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And so for those of you not, and thank you, for those of you not familiar with the Udemy instructor community, there's this group that you can join on Udemy's website where you can ask other instructors questions, or you can do a search to ask for other questions people have asked in the past, so you can get up and running much faster. Yeah. All right. And next up is Albus is saying, "Chris, I hope that you're taking good rest in between work hours." Yeah, thank you. No, I am. Every Sunday I take off. It's a religious reason for me. You know, I spend time with Christine and the kids, my wife and kids, who are right here, and we reconnect every Sunday. And I'm not allowed to do any work on Sundays either. And I really do believe that if you force yourself to take one day off a week, be it a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is, that it's one of the best investments you can possibly make in yourself. You'll live a lot longer. You'll be happier. You'll think more clearly as well. And since the beginning of time, our forefathers and foremothers, there's been 10 rules, which is the basis for a lot of great religions. And one of those rules is to rest one day a week. And if you don't do it, you will burn out. It's been part of human history for thousands of years, which is why it's one of those 10 great rules. And if you don't do it, I promise you, you will never reach your full potential in life. So I do take every Sunday off. Yeah. But it's hard because I do love doing what I'm doing. But I want to spend time with my kids before they leave. And by the time your child is 12 years old, you've already spent 90% of the time you'll ever spend with them. It's a true statistic. And so my oldest one in the dark blue shirt here, Andrew, he's 16 now. And because of COVID, there is kind of a silver lining. I do get to spend more time with him. We work out together in the garage. Yeah. Next question is, if you would have been part of Apple's board when Steve Jobs was back as CEO, what would you have done? Yeah. So I believe that when a founder leaves a company, investors should run for the exit. And there's a reason why there's so many successful venture capital firms that focus on great founders. Like Peter Thiel, for example, who was the first investor in Facebook and was the co-founder of PayPal along with Max Levchin. Peter Thiel's venture capital firm is called Founders Fund because he believes in investing in great founders. And I really do believe that when a founder leaves a company, investors should run for the exit. And so I would give Steve Jobs my full support. And whenever I was on boards of companies, I always saw myself humbly as a prosthetic extension of the management team. I was there to serve the founder and help them to grow their business by introducing them to potential customers. And I believe in what Ted Turner preaches, which is either lead, follow, or get out of the way. And when great founders run companies, I think you just have to follow them and just not get in their way. And what really bugs me is when boards will fire the founder. Sometimes it's a tough decision, but the founder can be moved from CEO to CTO if they agree to do so. But if they're actually fired by the board, then I think investors should run for the exits. All right. Next up, we've got Manas is saying Oracle got TikTok and Trump banned it. Why? Yeah. So I don't know the specific reasons. I do know that Oracle, which is a great enterprise software company, has never done a big consumer acquisition in the past. The closest thing they got to a consumer product was back in 1997, Larry Ellison, the brilliant founder of Oracle, launched the NC, the network computer. And at one point, according to people familiar with the matter, he was trying to buy or looking to buy Apple because Steve Jobs was his best friend and the company was significantly undervalued. And so Oracle has done incredibly well over the past decade or two by consolidating the enterprise software space. They've bought a lot of companies, including PeopleSoft, Hyperion, NetSuite, BEA, Sun Microsystems, etc. And so Safra Catz, who is the brilliant financial wizard behind all of these acquisitions at Oracle, she's realized that in order to grow, because Oracle's such a big company, they have to start buying companies. But it's a double-edged sword because it basically means that you have to make a big acquisition every year. Otherwise, it will look like growth is slowing year over year. And TikTok would have been a really interesting one for them because, again, they've never done a consumer-based acquisition before. But I think, and I'm completely making this up. I don't know if this is real or not. I'm opining live here. But Oracle's first contract was with the CIA. And it was called Project Oracle, which was the CIA's first database, or first notable database, I should say, back in the 1970s. And so Oracle's always had incredible relationships with the United States government when it comes to selling enterprise software. And I'm sure because of that and because of their great track record with security relative to other enterprise software companies, I'm sure that there was a way for them to articulate to the Trump administration that if they were to go through and purchase TikTok, that they could make it much more secure, perhaps using some of their database technologies. In terms of why Trump banned it, per your question here, it just might be for national security reasons, a lot of which we'll never know. But I can only opine or think about the process of the CIA probably looking into TikTok and realizing that the Chinese government may or may not have access to live cameras in your house or TikTok videos, etc. Now, I know that sounds weird, but there are technologies out there that will allow people to spy on you with your iPhone and your Android handset, even if you don't have the camera on. Yes, it's true. It's true. And I know a lot of people that work for three-letter agencies in the United States government. And there's always been a rule for them, which is you're not allowed to go to China and bring your corporate or your government cell phone. You're not allowed to. And one of the people at the CIA explained it to me. This is a couple of years ago. This might be dated. But he told me that if you go to China or any other country and you go through customs, if they take your cell phone and they put it behind the desk or hidden from you for literally 30 seconds, they can copy everything on it. And it's getting dangerous too when it comes to credit cards. Look, I have an RFID blocking wallet because people can steal your credit card data wirelessly. And that's why a lot of higher end bags from companies such as Toomey will have these little RFID blocking pockets as well. You can never be too careful. All right. Okay, next up, Albus is asking, what are 2 things that you would want to change on this planet if you had all the power? Wow, what a great question. I say number 1, I would make education affordable or even free for everybody on the planet, because I really do believe that education can solve every problem we have on this planet. And I think that access to high quality, low price education is as much of a basic human right as the right to food, water, air, and freedom of religion. That's right. I really do believe that. And for more details on this, you can watch a TEDx talk I gave called Why TEA Can Solve All Problems in the World. And TEAT stands for Technology, Education, and Acceptance. I really do believe that to be the case. And I'm giving a keynote speech at the end of October, along with a bunch of other people, including one of the co-founders of Tesla, for this massive Startsy event. And the crux of that is going to be how education will and can fix every problem in the world. And my vision of the world has changed a lot in the past couple of months, because my vision of online education was in 10 or 15 years, it would be as prevalent as it is today. But because of COVID, unfortunately, a lot of people are learning from home. And even universities have opened here in the United States, but just online. You know, a lot of people haven't actually gone back to campus. And it doesn't make sense for you to spend $100,000 to get a 4-year undergraduate degree when you're just staying home and learning online. You know, I think that universities will go from 4-year degrees to 2 years, and it'll be supplemented with online education as well. Because the average undergraduate education degree has 13 hours of class per week, which is ridiculous. It costs you a fortune, and you really don't learn that much stuff you can apply in the real world. I don't think university is going to be entirely wiped out, meaning bricks and mortar universities. I just think it'll be supplemented with online education. And my views are pretty extreme, because I do believe that within a couple of decades, most universities will go bankrupt. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people are just going to decide to learn online. And a lot of the best companies on the planet no longer require you to have a university degree to work there, including IBM, Google, Facebook, which is not my favorite company, but they're doing a great job by hiring people that don't have degrees, as well as Google, Wells Fargo, and many, many others. And this is just the start of a massive secular shift and movement to online education. So the second thing I would change on this planet if I had all the power, gosh, that's tough. I'd eliminate communism. You know, the filth of communism, it sucks the life out of you, and I despise it. You know, I grew up in Canada in the 80s loving Ronald Reagan. That guy was a great president. God, I wish he was running again so I could vote Republican. Maybe a cure for COVID is coming in November. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to shut up now about that stuff. But I would eliminate communism completely. I hate oppression. And it breaks my heart, because for my entire life, you know, since I was a baby, when President Nixon visited China China, since I was born, has becoming less and less communist. That's a beautiful thing, obviously. But now it's starting to move back, and that scares me. That scares me. And I hate it when people are oppressed and don't have freedom of speech. And this is controversial, and I wear my heart in my sleeve, as always, and I speak my mind, and I'm fully transparent. But back in January and December of a year ago, 2019, there was a lot of rioting, peaceful protests in Hong Kong because people felt that their rights were being taken away. And the Chinese government, when COVID came out, I personally believe they could have quashed it and stopped it in late 2019. But given the fact that a lot of people were rioting in the streets peacefully in Hong Kong, I believe that the Chinese government let COVID go on a little bit longer than it should have. I don't think they manufactured it, but I think that they could have quashed it earlier. But by not quashing it or, managing it earlier, it forced everybody in Hong Kong and many parts of the world, obviously, to stay home. And that stopped the rioting. And it breaks my heart because now China, which, it has been, this is nothing against the Chinese people at all. This is a knock on the Chinese government, Beijing. The Chinese government now is becoming a little bit more communist. It's moving backwards. And given globalization, everybody gets hurt by that. So anyway, I would, your question was what two things, what I want to change on this planet if I had all the power. And in summary, number one is free or very low cost, high quality education. And number two is banning of communism. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, what should the size of the alphabet when you're typing in the book be? Okay, for writing a book, yeah. And for those of you interested in writing a book, I've written a bunch of them. And I want to provide you with a free template so you can all write a book. It's really, really easy to do, actually. So just go to my website, which is harounventures.com. Then go to /writebook, all lowercase, okay? All lowercase. And you can download a template that I created. So you can create a book this is one of my books, in 6:9 format, okay? And so if you download this template here, it's a Microsoft Word document, and all you have to do is read the first page. It's free. Read the first page to figure out how to make a book that's 6:9, okay? And on the first page, I tell you here how to get it published on Amazon Kindle, as well as Amazon Print, as well as Audible, meaning acx.com. And how to get your graphics done. It'll cost you $5 actually if you want to get somebody on a website from a great company in Tel Aviv called Fiverr, Fiverr.com. It'll cost you $5 to get somebody to make the cover if you want. I'm not a graphic design guy, so I always get Fiverr people to make my covers of my books. And so here it is. Here's the template. Just write the book, and after you've done writing it, right-click here on this table of contents, which will automatically update and repaginate. That's a word, repaginate. Repaginate the book for you. Yeah. But in terms of the font size, which is your question, I would say 11 is good, but never below that. Yeah. And for me, like my eyes are getting a little bit worse. The older I get, the better I was. So I have to use my iPhone a lot now to read anything that's size 10 or smaller, especially on medicine bottles. It's ridiculous. Like a lot of these medicines are for old people like me, yet I can't read the writing. Yeah. But God bless Apple actually for doing a great job with accessibility features in the iPhone and on the desktop as well. I use those. Yeah. So I'm looking through a teleprompter right now, reading these questions. And I've got the font size at 24. Yeah. Okay. All right. And you're most welcome in us. Okay. Hold on a second, please. All right. All right, next question I've got here is from Saloni, who's saying, "Hi, Chris. Hey, hope all is well. Likewise. My question for today is, what are the three most important qualities you look for in a person?" Yeah. So I look for integrity, passion, and motivation. So if I'm looking to hire somebody, I look for integrity, passion, and motivation, IPM. Integrity, it's kind of hard to judge if somebody has integrity or not when you're interviewing them, but I'll provide you with a couple of tips. So when I used to work at this great hedge fund called Citadel, management hired 25-year FBI and CIA veterans to train us how to tell if CEOs or anybody are lying. And it was a great skill to learn because a lot of CEOs were going on television and not being truthful. You know, back in the early 2000s, there was this joke going around Wall Street, which is, how can you tell when a CEO is lying? When he or she moves their lips. And so the way to tell from an integrity perspective, if somebody is lying, you can use the following four tips. And what I'm about to tell you, make sure that at least two of the tips are satisfied, or two of the four sets of criteria. And also understand it's not a perfect science, okay? The first way to tell if somebody is lying is if you ask them a simple question and they ramble on and on and on and on and on. The second way to tell if somebody is lying is if they break eye contact with you when they answer the question, as long as they don't usually do that. Like for me, I look down a bunch. It's just my demeanor. Okay. The third way to tell if somebody is lying is if they're shaking their foot a bit, unless they've had a little bit too much caffeine, which I have this morning. Yeah. And that's why they have those lie detector tests. They're just basically trying to see if you're shaking or you're a little bit nervous, whatever it is. The fourth way to tell if somebody is lying is if they touch their face a lot when they're answering a question. Now, make sure that you've got at least two of those four sets of criteria in mind before deciding if somebody may or may not be lying. And it's more of an art than a science, to be honest. But just those are four tips. And you can usually, from an integrity perspective, like when you meet with somebody that you're interviewing or thinking about going out on a date on or whatever it is, a lot of times you go with your gut. And we've all gotten screwed over, you know, in relationships or in business in our lives, with friends as well, because you just couldn't trust them. Integrity was an issue. And when you meet somebody, if your gut tells you not to trust them, go with your gut. Go with your gut. You know, because, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That sort of thing. As Warren Buffett said, it takes 30 years to build up a reputation and 30 seconds to ruin it. I believe that. Okay, so that's the first of three important qualities to look for in a person. The second one is passion. When I interview somebody, I want them to come across as incredibly passionate about what they're doing. I don't want to interview someone that's looking for a job. I want somebody that's looking for a passion. Because if they're passionate about what they do, they're going to be very, very productive. And it's more fun working with passionate people. For example, the difference between an average engineer in Silicon Valley and a great engineer is literally 10x in performance. Because a lot of engineers, especially in the software sector, they love what they're doing. It's just so much fun. They're architecting, you know, the future of computing through code. It's fun. I love it. So I look for passion. The last thing I look at, the third thing, is motivation. I love hiring people that have come from difficult backgrounds, that were dealt a crappy set of cards in life. I love that. I love that because they're hungry. You know, my favorite combination in a person to hire is somebody that's poor, smart, and hungry. I love that, and certainly not entitled. And there's this old saying when it comes to family business, which is the first generation makes the money, the second spends it, and the third has none. I like to find people that are incredibly motivated, that come from difficult backgrounds as well, because it's the right thing to do. So the bottom line is the three most important qualities I look for are integrity, passion, and motivation. Okay, next question we've got is from Casey, who's saying, Chris, what are the most important qualities you look for in an employee and in a business partner? So when it comes to an employee, I just answered that one, integrity, passion, and motivation. And when it comes to a business partner, I would say it's the exact same thing. The exact same thing, yeah. But when it comes to a business partner, there's got to be some sort of a yin-yang phenomenon where they're filling a gap that you have. So, for example, Steve Jobs, who was, God bless him, was amazing at sales and marketing. He wasn't the best programmer or hardware engineer. And so he needed to hire or actually partner with Steve Wozniak. So you might need to find your Wozniak as well if you're a business person but not a techie and you're starting a tech company. So you always want to find a business partner that can fill a gap that you don't have. All right, next up is Patrick, who's saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning. What are the odds of a startup in the current economic climate getting funding if the startup is on the thinnest of shoestrings? Must always take seed money to raise funding. Yeah. Oof. It's tough. It's hard. I always say to raise as much money as you can when you can. And for about a decade, it was capital chasing entrepreneurs. And now it's entrepreneurs chasing capital. And I would say that the easiest way to raise money is to raise money from high net worth investors because the sales cycle is much shorter than if you raise money from venture capital firms. And so when it comes to high net worth investors, they can decide after one or two meetings, within 1 month even, sometimes a couple weeks, whether or not they want to invest in your company. When it comes to venture capital firms, there's a lot of bureaucracy involved. There's investment committee meetings, etc. And a lot of times you get the meetings with venture capital firms because the analysts that work there have to take a bunch of meetings, each day. You become a check mark. That's it. But I think the best way to raise money is to network aggressively. And you can go to my website and download this book for free. My website is harounventures.com. And this book on networking will teach you how to get meetings with high net worth investors so that you can possibly get them to invest in your company or have them as mentors or advisors, etc. And what I would say is the best way to network is to find two things that somebody has in common with you and use LinkedIn. For example, let's say you do an advanced search and you're searching for somebody that lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, like I do, that's originally from Mississauga, which is where I'm from in Canada, although I went to school in Montreal. And you're searching for somebody that also went to the Toronto French School, which I went to when I was a kid. And send an email to this person and say, Chris, this is an example, hope all is well. I'm currently in the Bay Area, and I also went to the Toronto French School, and I'm also from Mississauga. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee or a Zoom meeting. That works, man. It works, and nobody does it. Nobody does it. And think of it this way, okay? Imagine yourself 20 years in the future, and you're way, way, way more successful 20 years in the future than you are today. And this 20-year younger version of you reaches out to you and asks for help. Would you say yes? Of course you would. So please network aggressively. But you got to keep in mind, it's like dating though, right? For me, I had to ask 8 billion people out before I got a single date. It's kind of like that with networking. You got to be relentless, like a pit bull on a pork chop, and never ever give up. And just keep at it, because the most successful people in business have failed so many times before they became successful. And the bottom line is that in business, you only have to be successful one time. Okay. Next question I've got, and if you're just joining us in the webcast, I'm so sorry that we had technical issues with the first webcast and I had to quickly relaunch it here. Again, you'd think that after 107 weeks, I get this right, but the older I get, the better I was. All right, next up we have Shabam, who's saying, hi, Chris, hope you're doing well. Thank you, likewise. And then you wrote here, I'm currently writing a book using your template. Awesome. I really love your concept of the triangle of despair, among others. Can I use them with due credits? Dude, use anything of mine you want, and don't credit me. I want to humbly help if I possibly can. And what Shubham is referring to is this concept of the triangle of despair, which is, and I'll explain this really quickly. So, and let me actually use a better camera angle over here. So, when you're young, here's a chart. Okay, on the x-axis is your age. On the y-axis is give a damn. When you're younger, you're down here. Okay, you're younger. You don't give a damn what people think. When you're older, you also don't give a damn what people think. Old people don't have confidence problems. The problem is when you're younger, like me in my 20s and 30s. I'll speak for myself. I gave a damn what people thought of me. I was insecure. And I call that the triangle of despair. And you've got to avoid the triangle of despair at all costs. Don't give a damn what people think of your career choices, the way you look, or anything about you. Do what you love doing and live at a very low level. And that doesn't mean be rude or disingenuous or insincere. Just be you. You know, as Dr. Seuss said, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And the best entrepreneurs in the world, they live at this level. They just don't care what people think of them. You know, amazing people like Oprah Winfrey, who was told a gazillion times she'll never make it. She didn't care what people thought. You know, the same thing with Elon Musk. He doesn't care what people think of him. He does what he wants to do. I mean, the guy's so long-term focused, he's looking at colonizing Mars now. But he doesn't care what people think. And if those aforementioned great entrepreneurs did care what people thought of them, they would never be successful. You got to live at this level and just say, I don't care what people think of my choices in my life. All right. Okay, next up, the question is from Patrick, who's saying, is there still a business in the financial industry for the selling of automated trading systems? Or has Simmons shut the door on that? Yeah. And so what Patrick's referring to is a brilliant man named Jim Simmons, who started an incredible hedge fund called Renaissance Technologies. And Renaissance has thousands of Linux servers running in parallel that pick stocks. And they have an office on the East Coast and one out here by Berkeley because Mr. Simmons' son, Jim Simmons' son, went to Berkeley out here. Yeah. And so what these computers do is they look at a gazillion inputs using artificial intelligence and they invest automatically in stocks. For example, let's say that it rains a lot one month. Then that means people won't go out to restaurants as much during their lunch breaks. They'll eat in the food court or they won't go out to dinner. And so restaurant stocks will do poorly. And so the Renaissance algorithm might short restaurant stocks in that case, like MCD, ticker for McDonald's, etc., or SBUX, ticker for Starbucks. So there's only a handful of funds that have figured that out, the automated system, and they guard their secrets closely. So I would say it's very, very tough to do. And in terms of selling an automated trading system, I don't really think there's one particular company that sells that type of product, because if it was so good, they would use it themselves to make a fortune, which is what Renaissance has done with their proprietary technology. Okay. And then you wrote here, I want to recommend one of the most entertaining and beautiful video games I've ever experienced. It's called Ghost of Tsushima. It isn't as sandboxy as Red Dead Redemption, but it's fantastic. Thank you all. I will check that out. I appreciate that. Thanks. Okay. I'm currently playing The Last of Us Part 2, which is amazing, but I have to play with the lights on because it scares the crap out of me. Next up, questions from Manoj, who's saying, hi, Chris. Hope you and your family are doing well. Likewise. And then let's see what your question is here. You wrote, should I change my business office less or stick with my office? If office less, how to get started with it? Yeah. So the question is, should I set up a real office or work from home? So I would say the only reason to have an office is if you have to collaborate with other employees face to face, or if you need a professional boardroom, for example, to meet with potential investors or customers. Otherwise, I would say it's a complete waste of money. We can all telecommute and work from home. And when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And one of the positive byproducts, if there's anything, of this terrible COVID situation is we get to spend more time with our family and spend less time commuting, which is good for the environment for obvious reasons as well. So I don't think you should get an office unless you want to meet with potential customers there, or if you have to be around other employees. But I think that we can all work virtually, like we're doing right now, given COVID. Yeah. Okay, next up is Emily is saying, hi, Chris. Hey, I'm your new silver MBA degree student, and I enjoy it very much. Thank you. And then you wrote, I really like your way of teaching. Thank you. Can you share? Appreciate that. God bless you. And what Mr. Lee is referring to is I have a couple of MBA degree programs, which you can find on my website at harounventures.com. There's 3 versions. There's the silver version, which you can enroll in and start today. It's over 300 hours of lessons, 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. Then there's 2 versions that you have to apply to. And these 2 versions start this December and next December. And there's the gold version, which is identical to silver, except you get a couple hundred hours of live Q&A. And there's the platinum version, which is identical to gold, except you get a couple hours of one-on-one time with me, either in person, if you're here in the Bay Area, or via Zoom. And so check it out. If you have questions about it, let me know. I have an FAQ here on my website as well. Thank you. And thanks for your support. I appreciate it. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying. You're the one. Just kidding. Yeah, thank you. And the question is, can you share with us more about your experiences in starting your own hedge fund? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So I found that the way that I was able to start the hedge fund was by first having experience in the sector, number one, and number two, being able to network aggressively. And so when you start your own company, I'll make this a generic answer so it's applicable to all startups. When you start your own company, if you want to raise money, you need to prove that you have experience in that sector. And I would recommend getting people you've worked with to write recommendations for you on LinkedIn, on your LinkedIn profile as well, bragging about the breadth and depth and wealth of experience you have. The second thing you need to do, which is more important, is the ability to network, to get meetings and to get investors. And relationships are more important than product knowledge. And you always have to bond before business. And so you can go to my website, harounventures.com, and download this book for free on how to network. It'll tell you how to get meetings with anybody so you can get a job, customer, investors, et cetera, et cetera. And I wouldn't waste your time talking to venture capital firms initially until you're very, very established and you have, revenue. If you're pre-revenue, I would talk to high net worth investors initially. Yeah. And when it comes to starting a hedge fund, if anybody tells you that they can help you raise money, it's BS. Don't believe them. You have to do all the hard work yourself by leveraging your network. Read my networking book. I promise you it will help you. Okay. Next up, a question from Mr. Lee, who's saying, I would like to know, how long do you usually spend in due diligence for each stock? Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So a long time. I do a ton of research. I write my own financial model. I create detailed write-ups as well. So I usually don't buy a stock unless I've done research for at least 10 hours on that company. That's right. Because every single year, your portfolio, if you're a professional investor or you spend a lot of time trying to make money yourself instead of buying mutual funds or ETFs, but every year, your portfolio's performance usually comes down to a handful of stocks, 2 or 3. And if you do a ton of research on companies, then you won't panic at the worst time. You won't be a tourist and sell when everyone else does. You won't be renting the stock. And, Warren Buffett once said that the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. Think about that. Think about that. You got to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. And you got to buy broken stocks and not broken companies. And it feels uncomfortable buying a stock that has a chart that looks like you're catching a falling knife. It makes you uncomfortable. But if you do your research yourself, you'll be excited when a company you're doing research on is falling, because then you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I've done a lot of research. I'm going to back up the truck because everyone else is freaking out. Because if you buy a stock that everyone else already owns, who's the incremental investor to push it higher? There's not many. And for more details on how to do very detailed stock write-ups before buying a position, you can take my course online called the Complete Financial Analyst course, which you'll find on Udemy or my website. Or you can take my MBA degree program, and I go into much more detail on that topic. Okay, next question is from Michael, who's saying, what are your predictions for the fitness industry in the near future? Yeah. So things are not looking good. 24-hour fitness, which is one of the largest clubs in America here, in my gym as well, filed for bankruptcy protection. It's tough given COVID for obvious reasons. Really, really hard. It's tough. And a lot of restaurants are making it. They're still surviving because they can serve people outdoors. At least here in California where I live, you can eat at restaurants outdoors. And if the weather's good, and it usually is out here, it's fine. It works out. But with fitness institutions, it's tough. I haven't heard of any fitness companies opening outdoor operations. Although I know in Santa Monica you can work out on the beach. At a couple of places there, but not where I live. So I'm pretty worried about the fitness industry, the bricks and mortar fitness industry. But I think longer term, the Peltons of the world or the Fitbits of the world will do extraordinarily well. Of course, Fitbit is owned by Google now. And I think that the whole quantified self movement is just in the first inning, so to speak. Meaning people buying IoT or Internet of Things devices to monitor their blood pressure, etc. So if I were to invest in the fitness industry, it would be through IoT type devices that also sell subscription products, because that's great revenue visibility as well. Yeah. But I do believe that old gyms are in secular decline. Yeah. And I think Gold's Gym in America might have also filed for Chapter 11. And for those of you not familiar with Chapter 11, it basically means bankruptcy protection. And here's what it means. So in 1979, the United States government set up 300 bankruptcy courts across the country. And there's a lot of different chapters in the bankruptcy code, legal code. And so Chapter 11 is when you file for bankruptcy, or a company does. And what happens is this. When you file for bankruptcy, or a company does, you have 4 months for which you have a force field around you and nobody can touch you. And during those 4 months, you consolidate your debt, you talk to people that you owe money to, and try to see if you can negotiate a different rate or pay a little bit less. And then after 4 months, you come out of bankruptcy. And about 75% of all companies that declare bankruptcy come out better off. As long as there's no fraud involved. Yeah. So, 24-hour fitness and Gold have filed for bankruptcy. It doesn't mean they're going belly up. It just means they're having big issues right now with paying back debt. Yeah. All right. Next up, D'Angelo is saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning. In your opinion, what separates a good question from a great question, particularly when asking mentors? Yeah. Yeah. I would say great questions are ones where you're very, very long-term focused and mindful of trends in a particular sector or in a career. The longer the view, the wiser the intention, as Warren Buffett said. And I tend to ask very different questions when I meet with management teams. I ask very, very long-term oriented questions like, how should I think about your product portfolio in 10 or 15 years? And they might tell me something along the lines of, well, with our platform product, we have a couple of products set up, but we have a gap. We want to get into the analytics market as well. For example, within enterprise software. So I ask about the product portfolio longer term, and I ask it from a platform perspective, because the most sophisticated investors and CEOs and mentors as well understand that platforms are the best business models. If you own the road, you can charge the car and the toll booths. Another question I love to ask management teams is this: what is the most misunderstood aspect of your business model by investors and customers? It's a very thought-provoking question, and it makes you look like you're long-term focused as well. Okay. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the questions from the other webcast here, being the one that everyone's typing in questions at for right now. And I'm so sorry about that mess up I had this morning with the webcast. Yeah, the older I get, the better I was. All right, so the first question here is from N12, which is, Chris, hope you're well, likewise. And then you wrote, you gave me advice to me early last year, which allowed me to land my first job after graduating. So thank you so much. You're most welcome. Thank you. At least I'm helping one person. This is great. Just kidding. And then you wrote here, I made the mistake of quitting just before COVID really kicked off to pursue a career in data. I've been trying to learn SQL, which is a structured query language, which is used for calling data within databases. And I've been trying to learn SQL, Python, and R since leaving my job. However, my experience lies in client services within investment management. Any advice? Yeah. So, yeah, I got you. Okay, so investment management technology. I got you. Okay. So what I would do is I would set up a lot of networking meetings, and I know it's tough to do meetings in person, but you can do Zoom meetings, and not many people are asking. Now, so there's less competition. So I want you to please read my networking book, which you can get from my website, which is harounventures.com. You can download for free. It'll tell you how to network and how to get a job, how to get customers, how to get investors, etc. Relationships are always more important than product knowledge. And I would set up a bunch of informational meetings. And when you set up these informational meetings with people that work in investment management and you want to work in the tech sector within IM, investment management, I want you just to bond with them, okay? The first 10 minutes of each meeting you get with them, just bond. And then they'll very politely ask you, why are we meeting? And then you can tell them what you're interested in doing. And what I always recommend doing is before a meeting, go to somebody's Twitter profile and see who they follow. You know, if they follow baseball, and this, by the way, is my homage to Jackie Robinson, one of my favorite athletes ever. He played actually in Montreal, and I went to school in Montreal as well. But if you see on their Twitter profile that they like baseball, you can talk about baseball, talk about sports. Sports is great boardroom talk, and really bond with them. Then ask them if there's any openings in their company or if they know anybody that might want to hire. After you bond with somebody, people do want to help you. You know, just ask. It's prophetic and it's been true since the beginning of time. Ask and you'll receive. It might not work the first time, but if you try enough times, kind of like dating, I promise you it'll work. I guarantee you it will. So that's what I would do. And it's so hard to just apply for a job when you see a job listing online, because thousands of people apply and you're just a number. And quite often the person that gets that job is the person that knows somebody at that company. So I recommend a different approach, which is setting up a ton of informational meetings. And towards the end of those informational meetings, ask them if they're hiring. And if they're not, ask them when they might be hiring. And then if they say, well, maybe in 6 months, then reach out to them in 6 months. Or ask them, do you know anybody else that might be hiring at their companies? And if you bond with people and set up informational meetings with people that have something in common with you, and you really bond with them in the first 10 minutes of the meeting, they're going to want to help you. You have to understand people want to help you. All you have to do is ask. And your homework is this. I want you to go to YouTube and do a search for 3 words. And there's a short video that will change your life. Those 3 words are Steve Jobs ask. And I'll let you watch the video. It's only a minute or so. It's life altering. But he talked about when he was younger, he asked a lot of people for help. And nobody asked for help. And people helped him because he asked over and over and over again. And then as a way for him to pay that debt of gratitude forward, there was this young guy that reached out to him years ago and asked for advice. And that guy's name was Mark Benioff, who of course is the founder and the wonderful philanthropist. But he's the founder of Salesforce.com, which is now the largest employer in San Francisco. Ask and you will receive. All right. All right. Next question I've got here. I gotta look at the other monitor now. Sorry. Okay, give me 1 second. All right. The next question is from Mr. Unknown, who's saying, a long time ago, Habibi, how are you? Mr. Unknown is actually one of my MBA degree students in my Platinum program, and he also has an Arabic background, just like me. Habibi, great to have you. And then you wrote here, well, by using your interview strategy, I finally have a good internship. Awesome. At a big cybersecurity company. I can't thank you enough, Chris. Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. That's music to my ears. Congratulations. And I remember once I did a call with you and you had this badass computer that you created yourself. So you can play GTA all modded out, GTA 5 that is, which looked pretty dope. Great to hear from you again, buddy. Okay. All right. Next up, the question is, I'm worried about a massive 6-month gap in my resume. Yeah. So let's just say you start working at a company today. And it's like right now, if you're watching the replay, it's late September 2020. And in December, you want to quit because you hate the job. Wait till January. Why? So that on your LinkedIn profile, it'll look like 2020 to 2021. I'm not saying to be unethical or lie. It looks better. It looks better. So if you wrote here, you have a 6-month gap on your resume. So that means that you haven't had a job since March of this year. Well, you could still on your resume list your last job from whatever year up until 2020. And and you have to disclose, obviously, you haven't been working for 6 months when you interview with somebody. But what you can say is that you retooled. And I know from your previous questions here on this webcast that you mentioned that you're taking courses online. You mentioned, I think, SQL, Python, and R. So you can mention in your interviews or informational meetings that you took this time to retool and learn new technologies. And you're ready to hit the ground running as of now because you've created a lot of sample products, sample code, etc. And you can always list those sample apps or websites or code or SQL calls, whatever it is, or Python code on a website, your own personal website, which costs you next to nothing if you use WordPress. Yeah. Okay. Next question is from Chung, who's saying, greetings from Germany. Hope you're doing well. Guten Morgen, or maybe it's Guten Abend for you. Yeah. And you wrote, I'm considering subscribing to the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times and Bloomberg and The Economist for my market news and insights. Is there one you'd recommend over the others? Thanks for taking the time. Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think you should subscribe to any of them, but my favorite one is the FT, and I don't want you to pay for it. I want you to get it for free, and I'm going to show you how. Okay. This is why I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I'm never going to sell out. I'm going to show you how to access the FT for free, okay? And I love the FT more than Wall Street Journal or other publications because it's very global in nature. So if we go to ft.com, okay, financialtimes.com, and by the way, when you go to these websites, don't read anything that will tell you what stocks to buy. I want you to always do your own research because everybody is biased. CEOs are biased when they're interviewed. They're great salespeople. That's how they got to where they are. And money managers will pitch their stocks to you. So be careful of that. Everyone's biased. So what I want you to do is read articles about how the world works. Okay, this is like getting an economics degree without the theoretical crap. So let me scroll through here and find an example of what to read. Okay, all right. So let's say here that you want to learn about how Finland kept COVID in check. Right here. So if I click right here, what happens is it says, hey, you got to subscribe, and it's going to make you pay, $40 a month. Screw that. Here's what you do instead. Okay, you copy this, okay, copy the right click, copy, and then you just search for it. Okay, then you click here, and now you get it for free. Why is that the case? Why can you get that for free? Because if the FT did not allow this to be indexed by Google, then from an SEO or search engine optimization perspective, not as many people would click on the FT. So hopefully that helps out. All right. Next question is, would you recommend a different approach to getting market news and insights? Okay, that's a follow-up. Yeah. So I would okay, don't read any publications that tell you what stocks to buy at all. What I want you to do is I want you to go to the investor relations website for a company and do research there. And you mentioned that you're in Germany. So for example, with SAP, fantastic enterprise software company based in Waldorf, Germany, 2 hours away from Frankfurt. I've been there many times. What you can do is do a search on SAP investor relations. And you can access the annual report there, the quarterly report as well, or you can go to sec.gov to access all of the ADR reports for them as well. And just read through the annual report, the quarterly report, listen to and watch the webcast for their quarterly earnings calls, watch their analyst day event as well online, and just always decide for yourself if you want to buy that stock or not, and do a comprehensive write-up as well as build your own financial model. And I teach you how to do that in my complete financial analyst course. And I also teach you how to do that in much more detail during my MBA degree program. Okay. All right. Next question is from Dante, who's saying, hi, Chris. Hey, I'm a 23-year-old aspiring film director / writer / producer living in Los Angeles. I'm interested in starting my own production company within the next 2 to 3 years and more ventures later on. My question is, what advice and steps do you recommend I should take to accomplish these career goals? I'm currently enrolled in community college taking film production and business courses. Awesome. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah. So what I recommend doing, now, university and community colleges can sometimes be a bit theoretical. So I recommend, if you can, taking masterclass courses from famous producers, directors, etc. Ron Howard has a great course I've taken. Also, you've got Martin Scorsese and a bunch of others as well. Tons, actually. So I would check that out. What I would also do is I would network aggressively to get an internship and to get real practical experience, because it's easier to raise money for your startup, for your own production company, I should say, if you have a lot of experience. And it's easier, of course, to get consulting gigs with your production company if you have experience. And I know how competitive it is down there in LA. I get it. But what I recommend doing is go to my website, harounventures.com, and download my book on networking. It's free, this book, and it'll teach you how to get informational meetings so that you can get that internship. And again, I do understand how brutal it is in LA in that industry. It's very, very tough. Just network a lot. And the way that I hired my production company was there's a guy named Adad Warda. He's a brilliant man, and he's made all of my promotional trailers. in Prague when I go to the Czech Republic, as well as here in the Bay Area. He's amazing. The way that I found him was he actually advertised over LinkedIn. And so you might want to look into that as well. But what I would do is, in order to set up your own portfolio, I would actually, on a website, create a bunch of videos from YouTube and just link them there or show them, embed them in your website if you want to. And that can be kind of like your digital resume. That's what I recommend. I also recommend vlogging a lot. And if you don't have time, start doing it weekly so that you can kind of show off your amazing video editing skills and production skills. And use a guy named Casey Neistat as your role model when it comes to video editing. Of course, he's a very famous vlogger. I think he has over 10 million subscribers. He's very transparent. He's a very genuine and good guy as well. So use him as your model and create a portfolio on YouTube and vlog once a week. And if you want, after you create one or two of them, let me know. We'll watch it here together on my weekly webcast. And best of luck to you. All right. Next up, I've got a question from Mohammed saying, "Hi, Chris. Hey. I'm currently debating between majoring in economics and finance. Can you tell me your idea on which is better in terms of job opportunities and salary? Thanks." Yeah, definitely finance. Definitely finance. Because when you major in economics, what happens is you learn a lot of theoretical stuff that you don't really use in the real world unless you're an economist or you want to be the minister of finance or work for the bank of whatever country you're in or work for the Federal Reserve. And so there are more finance jobs out there than there are economist jobs. So the total addressable market for finance jobs is much, much bigger. So I would focus on finance. The problem with economics is you learn a lot of theory that's not applicable in the real world, or people don't apply that much, like supply and demand graphs, that sort of thing. I've never seen anybody use a supply and demand graph in business, unless it's somebody that's an economist, yeah, which is a very, very tiny market. But more important than anything I just said is make sure you do what you're passionate about. Do what you enjoy doing the most. But I think that it's easier to get a job in finance than it is to get a job as an economist, for example. Yeah. Okay. And if I missed anybody's question, just paste it again, please. Next question is from Patrick. In case we need to re-enter our questions, is there a... Okay, yeah. No. It's fine. Yeah. And for those of you just joining the webcast, I had an issue with the previous webcast this morning, a technical issue. I had to restart. So I've answered all questions from the previous webcast. I'm now answering questions from this current webcast you're all watching live right now. Thank you. Okay. Next question is from Chung, who's saying, I work full-time and I invest part-time. So looking for a good way to educate myself about current events and gaining insights. Yeah. So, okay, and that's a follow-up to your previous question I answered. Yeah, thanks. All right, next up, hi, Chris. What sectors do you think will be more automated than others, like farming, mining, hotels, traveling, and then you wrote nice T-shirt, by the way. Yeah, thank you. So when it comes to farming versus mining, hotels, and traveling, automation, that's interesting. Well, let me talk about the derivative, the rate of change when it comes to automation. I think that farming will become much more automated than it is today. What's happening is great companies like John Deere, ticker DE, they're starting to use GPS tracking in order to understand when to mine or to farm the crops. I'm not a farmer guy. I just know from a tech perspective, from investing in Deere, that's something they're looking into. Yeah. But I'm so sorry. I don't have the best answer for that question. Yeah. And by the way, this shirt is it's Jackie Robinson when he played in the minor leagues in Montreal, which is where I went to school. Okay. Next up, question from Dante, who's saying, I'm thinking about enrolling in your MBA degree program next year. I completed your LinkedIn networking course, an entire MBA in one course, and the complete business plan course. I also read your networking book. Thanks. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, man. I'd love to have you. Yeah. And if you want more details, you can always go to my website. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Next question is from Mohammed. Any advice for getting started? When you want to, okay, any advice for getting investors for a startup? Yeah. So I would say that it all comes down to networking. You can go to my website and download my networking book. That will help you get a lot of networking meetings. And don't raise money initially, please, from venture capital firms. I want you to go after high net worth investors initially, because the sales cycle is a lot shorter. Yeah. Okay. Next question is from Digi Art Studio, saying, "Hi, Chris. This is a question I came across the internet, and I wanted your view. They say that the more you give to others, the more you shall receive. Does sharing really make you successful?" Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a wonderful book called Give and Take that was written by a Harvard scholar. And the crux of the book is this: the poorest 1% of people in the world are givers. People with beautiful souls like Mother Teresa. I miss her dearly. And somebody's got to make a great movie about Mother Teresa. I'm wearing her colors actually today. Yeah. The middle 98% of people in the world, wealth-wise, are takers. Most people take. And the top 1% of people in the world, by your net worth, are givers. You know, a lot of billionaires are givers. You know, even before they became billionaires, they love to help other people. Give and you'll receive. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. Speaking of the wonderful Mother Teresa, if you help other people, it will come back to help you as well. They'll want to help you, but you got to give from your heart first. You have to want to help. Yeah. And it's karma, I guess, or karma synchronicity. Call it what you will. Next question is from Cole, who's saying, "Hey, Chris, with the current performance of gas and oil stocks, do you think there is value in those companies to invest longer term?" Yeah. So I think that the oil sector is in terminal secular decline longer term. I think that, you know, by 2035, there's this new law that Gavin Newsom, who's our wonderful governor here in California, I think he'll be president one day. He said that all cars sold in California have to be zero emission. So I really do think that oil and gas stocks and sectors are in secular decline. Yeah. Next question is, could you explain how a chastity bond and poison pill works when it comes to a hostile takeover? Yeah. I don't actually know what a chastity bond is. I'm sorry. But a poison pill basically means there's kind of like a breakup fee. If the deal doesn't go through, then there's a penalty that needs to be paid. Yeah. Next question's from Amazing Science. "Hi, Chris. How do you increase your productivity with less time?" Yeah. So I schedule every single day. And so I have a daily scheduler that I give to all my MBA degree program students. It's a high-end premium version, but let me share with you a basic version that I promise you will help you get a lot more done every single day, because if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And we all know when we're on vacation, we don't get stuff done because we're not busy. So go to harounventures.com/schedule, all lowercase. And what you'll see here is, and I think I spelled schedule wrong. Sorry. Okay. And what you can do is you can download a daily schedule that I have here. And what I recommend doing is, before you go to bed every night, to write down your schedule for the next day. And you can change this around as well. And so what I do is I write down what I'm going to accomplish the next day before I go to bed. And I write it here by hand. Some of it here I actually just leave in here, like get up, walk. Every day at 1, I go for a walk because it releases endorphins. And Steve Jobs used to do that every day around 1 o'clock as well, which helped him come up with great ideas. I schedule time for family. It's set in stone, gym time, etc., and then bed. And what I also do is, before I make the schedule for the next day, I score myself. And the way I score myself is, it's very subjective. Please put in your own stuff here. This is just me. Did I put God first? Did I pray? If not, I take off 10% or 20%. Did I spend time with family? If not, I'll take off 10%. Did I eat the right foods? Did I exercise, weight, and all this other stuff? Get 8 hours sleep? Yes or no, yada, yada. To put customers first, that sort of thing. And I'll score myself out of 100 down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And I'll rinse, lather, repeat. I'll do this every single day except on weekends. And I write down my goals here as well. And by doing this, you'll get a hell of a lot more done because, as I mentioned before, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And I also multitask a lot. I like to do a couple things at once. So I get my 20,000 steps in a day now by rising this desk here, right? So it goes up, and then I've got, this is like a Michael Bay production here. I've actually got under here a treadmill, right? So I stand up and I walk on this treadmill as well. Let me stop that so you guys can see me. Yeah, it's underneath. I don't have my wide angle lens on my camera today, but I get my steps in this way as well, and I work much better too. Actually, I think more clearly when I exercise, and it's amazing because when you do your steps on a treadmill under your desk, you don't realize you're exercising, and then a couple hours go by and you're like, oh my God, I did 20,000 steps, and I got more work done. So try to multitask as much as you can. Yeah. All right. The next question is from Kardik, who's saying, how do I check the assumptions of a financial model? Yeah. So that's a tough question to answer. But when you're creating a financial model and you're assuming what percent of revenue all expense items will be on your income statement, like R&D, G&A, and sales and marketing, for example, what I would do is I'd look at similar companies' financials by going to the annual reports of similar companies and see as a percent of revenue what each line item was in the past, and use that to help create your model in the sector you're doing research on. Next up, a question from Amazing Science 360, who's saying, do you have a course on technical analysis of stock markets in Udemy? Yeah, so I have a course called How to Pick Stocks by a Pro Investor on Udemy. And I do talk about technical analysis in that. Or what you can do is just do a search on my YouTube channel on technical analysis. And I cover that in a bunch of detail. But I prefer that, humbly please, if you focus on fundamental research first, then valuation, and then a distant third is technicals. Yeah. That way you'll be longer term focused. All right. Next question's from Lucy, who's saying, hello from San Diego. Hello, Lucy. Hope you're doing well. Which would you pick to invest money in? Hedge fund or private equity? Yeah. So it all depends on the performance of that private equity firm or hedge fund. And I always invest in great people first and companies second. So I would take a look at the portfolio managers and look at their track record to see how successful they've been in the past. And read the entire offering memorandum from both vehicles, the private equity firm and the hedge fund first, please, before investing. Yeah. Okay. And Sam is saying, I finally made it to attend your office hours from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Excellent. Great to have you. Great to have you. And I hope you're a Cal Ripken fan. He played for the Baltimore Orioles. He's one of my heroes. Next up, we got Dario. Dario, how are you? Dario said, I hope you're doing well. Every day is a fantastic day when I have the opportunity to attend this great webcast. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. God bless you. Okay, next question is from Derek. Derek is saying, hi, Chris. Thank you for all your help. You're most welcome. What are your thoughts on Ripple, ticker XRP? Yeah, so I'll never tell you what cryptocurrencies or investments to buy, but I've publicly disclosed 4 cryptos that I've owned forever and I'll never sell. One of them is Ripple, which we know is a financial services-based cryptocurrency, and the founder lives around the corner from me here. The other 3 that I own include Ether, which is ticker ETH, which is on the Ethereum platform, as well as Bitcoin and Litecoin. Yeah. And for more details, you can take my complete cryptocurrency course, which is more than 24 hours long. And I'm quite critical of cryptocurrencies. You see, when I started doing research on cryptos, when I was making that course, and I spent 6 months day and night making that course. But when I first started doing research on that course, I was a 7 out of 10 positive on cryptocurrencies. And by the end, I was a 3 out of 10 positive on cryptocurrencies. Not so positive. I think most cryptos are an absolute scam. I think there's going to be a day of reckoning where a lot of people are going to get arrested and sent to jail for fraud, for pumping and dumping cryptos online, meaning saying good things about a crypto so everyone else buys, then they sell it, then they tell everyone else to sell, then they buy it back, rinse, lather, repeat. Yeah, it's a very, very corrupt industry. There's a handful of cryptos I think are wonderful long-term investments, but for the most part, I think most of them are a scam. Yeah, just do your research, please. And I teach you how to do research in my cryptocurrency course. All right, time for a little breakfast here. All right. Next question I've got is from Sam. Sam is saying, I have a business idea, and I couldn't work on it myself to develop a web app because I've been busy with my kids and my work. What do you suggest me to do? Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard. When it comes to a side hustle, what I recommend doing is scheduling every single day. So you can schedule time for family, first and foremost, your full-time job, as well as your side hustle. And what I recommend doing is getting up an hour earlier every single day and focusing on your side hustle during that 1 hour, because we know that the first hour of you being awake, you're way more productive and you're fresh as well. And when I wrote the GMAT and other exams I had to study for, I would always get up an hour early and study. And I remember I worked at Accenture and I wanted to leave. And I would wake, and I was out of town actually on a client site. And I would always wake up an hour early and study for the GMAT, which is not an intelligence test. It's how much you study, and that's why I did well. Quick little tip on how to ace any test. Okay, this is generic enough to apply to everybody. If you ever see multiple choice questions, I can get more than half of them right without ever reading the question. Here's how. When you look at the answers, you have to think like a lawyer, okay? And you have to look for exceptions. So when you answer multiple choice questions, if in the 4 answers, A, B, C, D, you see the word never or always, eliminate those immediately, because those are never the correct answer. Why? Because you can contest that if you're a lawyer. For example, this microphone here, it's black. Well, I don't know if it's, no, this microphone here is always black. Well, I don't know if it's always black. I mean, maybe it's a different shade of gray. So anyway, you get the idea. So the word always and never, eliminate those. Eliminate those. Those are just a couple suggestions. And the ones that are always correct, or usually correct, are the ones where the word sometimes, on many occasions, that sort of thing. Think like a lawyer and you'll do much better on multiple choice tests. But that's the only time you should think like a lawyer. Yeah. Unless you're a civil rights lawyer, then I love you. Okay. All right, next question's from Baha'i Gamer, who's saying, hey, Chris, I'd like to buy a PlayStation 5, and I want to make some money. Is there a job you'd recommend that I can do to save up some money? I just graduated high school, so I just want to get started on my own. Yeah. So the first thing I recommend doing, it sounds like you're an avid gamer, is selling your old games and your console as well. And what I do is, whenever I have something in my house that I'm not using, especially a video game or a console, I sell it immediately because they depreciate big time every single month. So go to eBay and sell all your stuff online. What you can also do on eBay is you can sell products your parents have or your friends have or strangers have on consignment. And you make a lot of money. And I used to do this. What you do is you tell people, I will sell your unused stuff and I want to keep 20%. And they'll say yes, because you're doing all the work. And this is a side business I had with my kids for a couple of years. It was fun. Let me show you. This is gonna knock your socks off. So let me go to eBay, okay? And I promise you, a lot of people watching this right now have thousands of dollars in their attic that they can monetize right now. And let me show you. And by the way, this is where I bought this shirt here, the Jackie Robinson shirt. Yeah. So watch this. Let's say you have an old iPod. This is going to blow you away. So do a search on whatever it is you want to sell, okay? And what you have to do is search for items that have sold. So let's go through this here. All right. So this old iPod, for example, 55 bucks. Remember this thing? Oh my God, I have one of those. I'm going to sell that. 62 bucks. Look at this. All this old crap sells for a lot more than you think. This 14 bids for $61 for that piece of junk, that old product. And sometimes you'll find iPhones and iPods here that sell for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. This was a limited edition U2 one, opened. You wouldn't use it anymore. $100 for this old piece of junk. It's unbelievable what you can sell this stuff for. You have a lot of this junk right in your attic, and I promise you, if you list it here on eBay, you have thousands of dollars worth of stuff potentially in your attic or your parents' attic or your friends' attics, etc. Look at this, 212, amazing, used, 7th generation, unbelievable. Right. So anyway, that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is you can sell stuff on eBay by going to AliExpress. Okay. And this is a concept called arbitrage, which means you buy for a small amount and you sell it for a large amount. And I did this with my kids a lot. I don't want to be that dad that gave my kids an iPhone. And so they had to earn it. And the way they earned it was they had to make $1,000 selling stuff on AliExpress. So here's what we did. We actually bought cases, so iPhone case. And I don't know if this will still work, but you got to look for arbitrage opportunities. So I'll click on the first one I see right here. So you can buy a ton of cases for probably 50 cents each, okay? If you buy in bulk. And you can sell these cases for $4 or $5 or maybe $10 on eBay. Look, these here are 67 cents, these ones here. And what I would do is this. Once my kids sold one of these things over eBay, what they would do is they would print out the shipping label, put it on the envelope, put the iPhone case in the envelope, walk up to the top of our driveway, put it in the mailbox, and turn the flag up so the mailman would pick it up. And every time they did that, they made $5 in net profits. And on the fridge, my 3 kids, there is a piece of paper with 200 squares, right? For each kid. So it's 3 pieces of paper. 200 squares times $5 is $1,000. And every time they sold a case, they would put a little X in one of the squares. And they earned their own iPhones. So what I would do is look to see if there's arbitrage opportunities like that. Not necessarily iPhone cases, but any sort of arb opportunity you can find on AliExpress.com. Be careful not to order too much stuff, though. Test it out first. Otherwise, you can have big inventory issues. And a lot of companies go bankrupt because of inventory, which is why the whole video game sector went belly up in the early 80s, because they made too many ET games. And I could go off script on that in a lot of detail if you want to. It's a case study I did with my MBA degree program students. And so aside from that, there's other side hustles you can do as well. Like you can go to Fiverr.com. That's Fiverr.com. And you could start creating brochures or PowerPoint presentations or graphic design or whatever it is and work remotely. It's a great gig. Check it out, Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. All right, next question is, with constant political skirmishes between countries and China, how do you think companies have to price in the risk of their investments in China going forward? Yeah. Oof, it's tough. There's a heck of a lot of saber rattling going on between Washington and Beijing. And a lot of people think that Beijing is going to crack down and ban a lot of American products after the election this November. So I don't feel comfortable investing in companies that have, more than 10% of their revenue exposed to China. I just don't, for geopolitical reasons. So that's what I would say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next question I've got here is from Alan, who's saying, "Hi, Chris. I'm now taking your MBA degree program, and it's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. You're the one." Just kidding. Then you wrote, "I'm just wondering what my career prospects are after I earn the degree." Yeah. So what I recommend doing is aggressively networking, which I talk about in the personal growth track in the first semester in a lot of detail. Also, I teach you how to create a resume in tons of detail and a LinkedIn profile. But make sure you use all the advanced networking skills that I teach in PG 11. Okay, that's personal growth in the first semester, the first couple classes. Yeah. And if you have questions, just let me know here, or you can ask me within the course. I get back to my students pretty quickly. Thank you. Okay. Next up, Tony is saying, where would you start to get your first reviews as a course creator? Yeah. So what you can do, Tony, and it's been a while since I heard from you, and I think you're based in Toronto. You moved from Montreal, right, to Toronto. And I think you mentioned your fiance, it's been a year and a half since I've seen you last. She works at Blake's, a great law firm in Toronto. Yeah. Great to have you back. So in terms of getting first reviews, you can give away a bunch of your courses for free and ask for honest reviews. You can do that. I found that my free courses actually get worse ratings, usually, than my paid for courses for some reason. Don't think that just because you give away free courses that people are going to rate it higher. That's what I would say. And before you create a course, Tony, on Udemy or any platform, what I want you to do is go to the top sellers for that category, the top selling courses, like some of my courses, and look at the 1-star reviews that I've have in my courses, which is terrible, right? 5-star good, 1-star bad. But I have a lot of 1-star reviews. And you can filter based on 1-star reviews. And I want you to read all the negative reviews on courses I've taught, for example, if you want to teach a course similar to mine, and make a better version of that course. And there's the whole notion of educational Darwinism. The best courses do great based on reviews. And I'm all for this. I'm all for criticizing my courses because I want you to make a better version. I want everybody to make better versions of my courses and all courses because the customer wins, which is the student, and we're all in this together. Next question is from Tony. How do you not infringe on copyright when you create a course? Yeah. So just don't throw in videos that you don't have access to from a copyright perspective. That's what I would say. Yeah. And if you're ever not sure about copyright issues, then I want you to go to legalzoom.com and hire a lawyer there for $15 for a half hour. And I don't get comped by them or any service. I'll never sell out. I'm not sponsored by anybody, nor will I ever be. But go to LegalZoom and have a call with them as well. It's the cheapest way to talk to a lawyer. Yeah. Unless your fiance works in copyright law. All right. And give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. All right. Let me just do a quick time check. Okay, we're good. All right. Next question I've got here is from Mohammed, who's saying, Dear Chris, thank you for the valuable advice. You're making a big impact on people's lives. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mohammed is asking, what do you do if you had the habit of doing business formation skillfully, you keep equity, and you leave for a next startup project once business is up and running? How do you fix such an issue? Let me read that again. What do you do if you had the habit of doing business formation skillfully, you keep equity, and you leave for the next startup product once business is up and running? How do you fix an issue? I'm so sorry. I don't understand the question. Please forgive me. Please rephrase it, and I'll answer it right away. Thank you. Next up, Tony is saying, thank you so much for the incredible value you provide. My pleasure, and thank you for being here. Thank you. And thank you for being a student and a customer. I appreciate it. Thank you. Next question is, what do you think about renewable energy, specifically solar as an option to go green with more developing countries. Yeah, yeah. So I'm very bullish on the sector. I've got solar on my roof. I'm very environmentally friendly. The green in my logo here, the up arrow, is inspired by my love for the environment and preserving our planet. But from an investor perspective, and I'll be intellectually honest and put my investor cap on here, you got to be careful because a lot of these clean tech investments are very capex intensive, right? They have to build big factories. There's inventory problems, and the inventory can destroy a company. And also, a lot of these clean tech companies have government subsidies, and an industry that's entirely based on government subsidies is not one that will make it in the long run unless they have incredible products and they figure out, a better mousetrap or how to produce products much cheaper and be able to survive independently without government help. And I'll give you an example. So back in 2008, when the world was ending, financial world, and we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working, a lot of countries declared bankruptcy. They went belly up. And a lot of countries had significant financial issues, like Spain, for example. And Spain had a ton of subsidies at that point in time for people getting solar. And what they did was they got rid of a lot of those subsidies for debt reasons. The government just couldn't afford those subsidies anymore, which destroyed or crippled temporarily the entire solar market. So you got to be careful that you don't just invest in a sector because of government incentives, because those can quickly be eliminated. And there's an incredible book written by a great economist and Harvard Business School professor named Michael Porter. And that book is called Can Japan Compete? And of course they can. But Mr. Porter wrote that book back in 2001. And what he did was, and I worked at Goldman Sachs at the time, and I worked in Japanese equities, which was a lot of fun. But what Michael Porter said was, and he analyzed the Japanese economy over several decades, and it was fascinating. And after World War II, the Japanese economy, for obvious reasons, was in very, very poor condition. And so what the Japanese government did after World War II was they created incentive programs for every sector in the economy to try to help the economy. They gave money to every single sector except for two sectors. One was autos and the other was consumer electronics. Now, there's a lot of very successful Japanese companies in many sectors, but particularly autos and consumer electronics. It's part of corporate Darwinism. So the bottom line is, when it comes to clean tech, don't only invest because there's a lot of government subsidies, because those can quickly be removed, which is what we saw in 2008. Okay, next question is from Casey, who's saying, what is your answer to your favorite question, which is, what is the most misunderstood aspect of your business model by customers? Wow, that's great. Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it. So the question Casey is asking is based on earlier on. She asked what's my favorite question for asking management teams, and I said, what's the most misunderstood aspect of your business model? And so, gosh. I mean, I don't know if I have a favorite answer to that. I've asked Nintendo. Yes. So I met with the CFO of Nintendo in Japan in January 2006. And this was right before the Wii product cycle. And I was an investor in that company, and I was bullish on the Wii at the time. And so what the CFO of Nintendo told me at the time was that, and that they don't make, and I remember asking him, I said, why is it you don't make a Super Mario game every single year? Why do you have to wait like 5 or 6 years until you get Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, whatever it is at that point in time? And that was before Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2, and then Mario Odyssey. And he said to me that the problem is that with Nintendo, there's only a certain number of developers on the planet that can make very high quality games. And the coders, the programmers at Nintendo that work on the Mario franchise, they also work on Zelda, Pokemon, and other intellectual property. And at that time, he was talking a lot about Pikmin, which is one of their new IPs, which is awesome. I love it. And I saw Miyamoto-san launch Pikmin, or Masayoshi-san, I'm so sorry, launch Pikmin at CES in 2001. And that guy's an amazing rock star. But those developers that work on the Mario franchise work on all that other IP. And what the CFO of Nintendo also told me at that point in time was, if you look at Walt Disney, and that was the example he used, they don't only make Mickey Mouse movies or Donald Duck. And I think that was right before they bought, or right around the time they bought Pixar. They don't just make Mickey Mouse movies or Donald Duck movies or Goofy movies or Pluto movies. Whatever happened to Pluto? What they do is they make lots and lots and lots of different types of movies, because if from a product portfolio perspective, if you put all your eggs in one basket and only create one type of content from one character, then that's very risky. It's very risky for that company. And so that's why they have the same developers work on lots of different IP as well. They can't just make Mario games. Otherwise, that's too much risk for the company in general. Yeah. And Nintendo is the oldest tech company on the planet. It's over 100 years old. And they're very, very paranoid. And there's a reason why they're still in business. All right. Next question is, with so many new books, podcasts, online videos, email blasts that people are exposed to these days, what do you feel one should focus on to stand out and add value above all the noise? Yeah. So what I would say is there's something I teach my MBA degree students as well as in class in one of my courses on Udemy called the Complete Presentation Course. And I'm going to walk through what I'm going to teach you in a second. First of all, my favorite quote ever from Michael Jordan: "I failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed." I got it on Etsy. So in order to stand out from a social media perspective, all of your content should adhere to what I created and I called the Cider Rules, like the movie The Cider House Rules. So cider. So your content's got to be very convincing. It's got to be interesting as well. Okay. It's got to be different, right? You've got to be different from everybody else, and just be yourself, because everybody else is taken, right? Also, you have to be edutaining, and that's, I wear my heart on my sleeve. That's my license plate, the front license plate. I hope I don't get a ticket for taking it off. But you have to entertain and be educational at the same time. You got to impart a skill on somebody immediately and share with the world, right? To make their lives better or entertain them, whatever it might be. It has to be relevant. And always ask yourself 2 words before everything you put on social media. Those 2 words are as follows: so what? And I call that the so what test. And Miles Davis had that great album called So What? Kind of Blue is the name of the album. But always ask yourself, so what? You know, everything you put on a bullet point, on a slide, everything you say social media wise, is it relevant? And get to the point as fast as you can. As fast as you can. Yeah. And even with my online courses, I find that if I don't teach a skill that somebody can use within the first couple minutes of a course, the course doesn't do well. You have to have immediate impact. And when you create social media content, you have to think about helping other people as well. You know, give and you'll receive. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. And the new rules of e-commerce are that you have to help people with your product or service before they buy it, which is why with my courses, I usually make 10% of the content free. And with all of my courses and my MBA degree programs, there is always a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. It's really competitive out there. Add value fast, give a money-back guarantee, and walk through walls for your customers, because a company is only as good as its customer service. Okay. Next question is from Solomon, who's saying, Chris, can you please shed some light on stock splits like Tesla and Apple? Yeah. So the reason that stocks split is because the company that splits their own shares wants to make the shares accessible to more investors. So let's say that the stock price of a company is $1,000 per share. Well, that means that a lot of people can't afford to buy even one share. So if they were to split that stock 10 times so that it's $100 a share, then more retail investors can buy shares in that company. It makes it more accessible. And sometimes the stock goes up a bit because of that. But fundamentally speaking, the value of the company shouldn't really change that much, because what they do is if they do a 10-for-1 split, meaning they take the stock price from 1,000 down to 100, then they have to increase the number of shares 10 times so that the market capitalization remains constant. But I remember I used to get yelled at by my portfolio manager years ago when I worked at a certain hedge fund I won't name. He yelled at me because Activision, ticker ATVI, was doing a stock split. And I said, we should buy it. It's a positive catalyst. The stock's going to go up. And he was a fundamental investor. And he said, no, Chris, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's not going to matter. In the long run, it doesn't matter that much. But in the short term, it does matter. It does matter. It does cause the stock to pop a bit. But that can't be the only reason you invest in the company. So he was right a little bit, although I don't like him very much. Yeah. When you work for somebody else, I want you to learn how not to manage people as well. They're valuable lessons. You learn what to do, what also not to do. And if you're ever mistreated, and I've certainly been mistreated in the past, and I'll never name the name of the managers that have mistreated me, but if you ever are, just tell yourself two things. Number one, I'm happy this is happening because the silver lining is this is making me frustrated. So frustrated that I'm going to get a better job and make more, or I'm going to start my own company. That's silver lining number one. Silver lining number two is this. You tell yourself, I'm learning right now how to never treat an employee. All right. All right. Oh, Phil Germany. How are you, bud? Phil, I profiled your second book actually last week. And so for those of you not familiar with Phil Germany, he was my very first student to use my book template, which is free. You can get on my website. He was my first student to write a book called Super Students. That was the name of his book, which is prophetic. So it was my first super student. And his book was about chess, which I bought on Amazon. And he wrote a second book recently, which is about healthcare as you get older. And I bought that and I profiled it. I think it was last week on this call as well. So great to have you. And Phil is writing here, at what point should your side hustle become your main hustle? Yeah, great question. So for me, the benchmark to use is when your side hustle, when you make more money in 6 months from your side hustle than you do from your entire salary in a year, that's a no-brainer time to quit. Yeah. All right. And then Himanshu wrote, it's better to learn finance than to attempt to write the GMAT. Finance is way easier than the GMAT. Actually, dude, I think the GMAT is easier. And I studied hundreds of hours for the GMAT. And I did very, very well. And I suck at tests, and I'm not that smart. But the reason I did well is because I realized that it's not an intelligence test. It's how well you write the test. And for those of you that want to write the GMAT, I highly recommend taking Princeton Review. Okay, it's a great methodology to learn how to write tests. You can take it online as well. Yeah, and there are ways to ace these tests. There are lots of tips and tricks, and you have to always think like the test writer, and understand little things like in multiple choice. If the answer is always or never, eliminate those because lawyers can always contest those answers. All right, next question is from Sam, who's saying, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate sharing your experiences and thoughts. You're most welcome. Thank you. Okay, next question here I've got is from Carlos. Carlos is asking, hi, Chris, what is the best way to invest in a country like mine? It's very oil-dependent economy. with a high rate exchange. I think our currency devalued 70% versus the American dollar. And I'm writing from Angola, by the way, the African country. Our currency is the Kwanzaa. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, it's tough. I'm sorry to hear about the devaluation. So I would say that anybody considering investing in a country with a volatile exchange rate, I would use hedging if you can. And a lot of times I'll invest in companies that are located in countries that have very volatile exchange rates. And when I talk to the company or I do research on the company by reading the annual report, I'll always do a control F or search for the word exchange rate. And I'll find out if that company hedges the FX or exchange rate. So for example, with SAP, great German software company, whenever they report earnings and whenever I read their annual report or quarterly reports, I always look closely to see what their hedging strategy is for euro versus the dollar, because SAP has a lot of revenue in the United States, and it's a German-based company. So I always look for that closely. So I would say always analyze, what the hedging practice is for any company you're looking at investing in from an FX perspective. Now, when it comes to commodities in general, always look into that as well. So, for example, there's a great American discount airline company called Southwest. Ticker is LUV, Love, because their headquarters are Lovejoy Field in Texas. But what Southwest did was, in the early 2000s, they looked at their business model and they realized that our biggest expense is oil. And so what Southwest did was they used derivatives to hedge the price of oil for 10 years at $30 per barrel. So it didn't matter if the price of oil went up to infinity, they'd still be able to buy oil at $30 per barrel. And what happened was there was a super cycle with oil to the extent that by mid-2008, before the world fell apart, financially speaking, by mid-2008, the price of oil temporarily went above $150 a barrel. And so investors loved Southwest then because their exposure to oil was $30 a barrel. And they did something predatory too. What they did was they actually cut the prices of their tickets and almost single-handedly forced a lot of American airline companies to go into bankruptcy. That, and obviously the economy fell off a cliff towards the end of 2008 as well. So I would not only look at FX hedging for companies, I would also look at commodity hedging as well. If a company is very much dependent on a certain commodity, like the airlines are with oil, for example. Next question is, what are 5 things that define you? Wow, that's a tough one. Transparent. I'm very transparent. Generous, humbly. I want to help as many people as I possibly can. And sometimes they say that kindness is a sign of weakness. And yes, it has hurt me in my career, but I am who I am. Let me think what else. Passionate. I'm very passionate about what I do. I love helping others. I love to teach. This is my calling. This is my raison d'être. Motivated. Always very motivated. When I was younger, they thought I had a learning disability, and they wanted to fail me in the 6th grade and the 8th grade. So I became very motivated to work harder than everybody else. And I was insecure too because of that, to be honest. But I've gotten past that. Yeah. See how transparent I am? I'm religious too. I don't really worry about anything business-wise because I always tell myself, God already knows what's going to happen, which puts me at ease. Oh, the Aquahood in the house. How are you? So the Aquahood is Michael, who's from the United Kingdom. And I haven't seen you in, God, it's like a year or so in this call. Great to have you back. And the interesting thing about Michael is that he grew up with Sacha Baron Cohen, the guy from Borat. And I remember asking him on a webcast over a year ago, what was Sacha Baron Cohen like as a kid? And Michael told me that he was very generous to the extent that Sacha Baron Cohen's mom had to come over to Michael's house one day and ask for Sacha Baron's toys back because Sacha Baron would give all his toys away to everybody all the time. Very generous man and an eloquent speaker as well. If you get a chance, do a search on a speech he gave recently regarding the Internet 6 and how evil Facebook is. Brilliant speech. I loved every word of it. Yeah. And if you're bored in the house, like everybody is now because of COVID, I recommend on Netflix watching a serious program, a 6-part miniseries called The Spy, which Sacha Baron Cohen stars in as a serious person. He did a great job too. He's very endearing. And that it's 6 episodes, and it's a true story. It's fascinating about how an Israeli from Egypt originally, an Israeli who's in the Mossad, which is like the CIA but for Israel, an Israeli in the Mossad in 1965 pretended he was Syrian and became the Minister of Defense in Syria. It's a real story. It's absolutely fascinating. Sorry, I put that screen blare there. I got to fix that. There we go. Good. All right. Manas wrote here, I got something for you, a quote from Abraham Lincoln. I might walk slowly, but I never look back. I love it. I love it because you can't control the past. Just look ahead. And I got a great quote for you regarding that from The Rock. I hope he's okay. He's got COVID, his whole family too. Anybody can get it. But The Rock said, when you've got your back against the wall, there's only one way to move. Next question is, how did you make your website? Yeah. So what I did was I used Squarespace. And I'm not sponsored by anybody, as you all know, but let me actually show you how I did it. Anybody can do it. It's really, really easy. So what I do on my website is I use a template from Squarespace. And you don't have to know how to code to do this. So here's one of my websites right here. I picked a certain theme, and I just designed the pages here. So it's pretty easy. You don't have to know how to code and stuff. And this stuff here, I use a lot of gadgets, or I should say plugins, kind of like APIs from other websites. So this here is a widget that I actually bought. I think it's like $10 a month for this widget here. And it's mobile friendly as well. And this widget is from a company called ElfSite. And let me show you what other widgets I have from them. Okay. So I've got this widget here, okay, which is it's awesome. It's easy to use as well. Another widget I have from that company ElfSite is my weekly webcasts here. So automatically from YouTube, all these are added here automatically. I don't have employees doing this, but I use another plugin from ElfSite here as well to do that. And I do the same thing with my vlogs, which are right here, my daily vlogs. They get added here every single day, again, directly from this little widget from a company called ElfSite. It's really easy to do, and it's all automated too, so I don't have to hire as many employees. All right. Next question is, would your perspective as an investor change if a renewable energy product were totally working without subsidies? If they were viewed as electronics products, let's say, advice for startups in the area. Yeah, absolutely. I'll invest in any company as long as they don't hurt the planet. I'll invest in any company that can sustainably grow cash flows in the long run without much help from governments. And as long as there's no customer concentration, meaning revenue has to be less than 10% from every customer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. All right, next question is, thanks so much, man. You're a real inspiration. Oh, thank you. And you're the reason I got a major change in life. Thanks so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. And thanks for your support as well. And thanks for being a customer and a student. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Next question is from Casey, which is, if one is employed and is waiting to do, if one is employed and wanting to do external work, how do you recommend that you indicate this on your online profile without annoying your employer? Yeah. Ooh, that's tough. It's tough. It's too risky. It's too risky to put it on your LinkedIn profile. Yeah. It's too risky. Like what I did when I started companies on the side, and I started tons of companies on the side when I worked for other people, was I would not put it in my LinkedIn profile, but I would advertise online. But I would pick markets online where I didn't know many people. So when I advertise using Google AdWords, etc., I would never advertise on the East Coast or West Coast, meaning New York and San Francisco, because I know a lot of people here. I would advertise in Middle America or in different countries like Pakistan, where I would test out products to see if they would sell. But I would not change my LinkedIn profile. Yeah, I was very, very careful about that. Yeah. And next question is, when are you really controlled by the joy of work? I don't know how to answer the question. I'm so sorry. I actually don't understand the question. If I can humbly ask you to please just type it a different way, and I'll be more than happy to answer that question for you. Thanks. And Michael, the Aquahood, is saying, great memory, Chris. No, I'll never forget that story you told me. It was great. And great to have you back, too. Thank you. All right, next up, we got Carlos is saying, thanks, Chris. I'm still in Angola. What do you think is the best way to start a business? Should I ask for a business loan or talk to investors? Yeah. Don't ever get a loan. Ever, ever, ever to start a business, please. The reason I say that is because banks are chicken, and if you miss just one payment, they can take everything. And what I want you to do, please, is register your company. Always register your company legally. Talk to a lawyer locally there in Andorra. It's in Angola. I'm so sorry, in Angola, and it goes for anybody in any country. Talk to a lawyer. Register your company name, because God forbid something bad happens with the company. You don't want to put your family standard of living at risk. You know, you want to be insulated and protected so that if something goes wrong and you get sued, God forbid. And if you're very successful, you will get sued. It happens. Damn lawyers. There's too many of them. Although I do love civil rights lawyers. So register that company, please. Also, I don't believe in getting a loan. I believe in getting equity investors, high net worth investors, to own part of your company. A minority stake, of course, because you always want to retain control. But I would get high net worth investors to invest in your company. And the best way to find them is to read my free networking book. You can go to my website, harounventures.com, and download this book for free. It's 200 pages. It'll tell you everything you need to know about how to network to get a job, a customer, investors, etc. And there's a couple hours of YouTube links as well that I've created for you in this book. Yeah. And when you raise money, always raise money initially from high net worth investors and not venture capital firms, because the sales cycle is much shorter with high net worth investors. And try to bond with them. Always bond before business. When you meet with them, talk about what you have in common. Maybe it's a love for baseball. And sports is always great boardroom talk. And by the way, so if you're curious why I'm wearing this shirt, I went to school in Montreal and I've been looking for this jersey everywhere. And it's actually the jersey that no hats ever fit my head properly, man. It's the jersey that Jackie Robinson wore. This is a replica, obviously, but Jackie Robinson was the first African American to play Major League Baseball with Brooklyn Dodgers. And Brooklyn Dodgers are now in Los Angeles. They used to be in Brooklyn, which is part of New York City, of course. But in the minor leagues, he played for Montreal, which is where I went to school. And Montreal stands for Mount. It's called that because it's Mount Royal. The middle of Montreal, there's a little mountain or a hill called Mount Royal, Montréal. And they retired his number, actually, number 42, when he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. They retired his number a couple of years ago so that nobody is allowed to ever wear number 42 again that plays Major League Baseball. And so he inspires me a lot. I bought this on eBay. I'm so excited I found it. I had to wear it today. It's a little bit too shiny, I think, for this webcast. But anyway, that's great, man. All right. Okay. Let's see what we got next here. If you were given a choice to decide between Amazon and Apple and Microsoft, and you had $1 trillion, which company would you invest in and why? Or would have you invested in and why? Yeah. So the best way to answer that question is when a founder leaves a company, innovation tends to die or slow down materially. Amazon is incredibly innovative today. They're unbelievable. And one of the reasons is because Jeff Bezos, the brilliant founder, is still there running the company. And Amazon runs like a startup still. It has that mentality. And so Jeff Bezos will never allow any meeting to take place that requires more than 2 pizzas to feed people in the meeting. It's called the 2 pizza rule. And the reason is when you get too many people in a meeting, and we all know about this from real life at school or at work, when there's too many people in a meeting, it's chaos. Nothing gets done. 2 girls or 2 guys can change the world from working in a garage, garage startups, etc. And Amazon still has that mentality today. It's amazing. And what Jeff Bezos also does, which is brilliant from a goal-setting perspective, what he does is he makes all of his product managers, whether you're working on Kindle, Amazon Prime, Amazon Web Services, whatever, Alexa, whatever, he makes all of his product managers write a press release today that's going to be released 1 year in the future. And he does that as kind of a goal-setting workshop for them. There's a gap between where they are today and where they're going to be when that press release comes out. How do you fill that gap? He's brilliant. And since Steve Jobs has passed away, God bless him, obviously the founder of Apple, innovation has died at Apple. It has. There's no groundbreaking new product they've made. They've made a bigger iPad, a smaller iPod, a bigger iPhone, a cheaper iPhone. They've made Apple Watch, which is okay, I guess, although there's no killer app for it. They haven't created a brand new category that's groundbreaking. They haven't. So that's one thing that concerns me about when a founder leaves a company. And the same thing with Microsoft. After Bill Gates stepped aside to become chief software architect, and eventually he left to start his wonderful charity with his wonderful wife, Melinda, there hasn't really been that much innovation. There hasn't. And I'm glad that Satya Nadella is the CEO there. I think he's done a wonderful job. And he's the right choice because he did kind of create the Azure division or Microsoft's cloud services division. But they haven't created any groundbreaking new products, a la Office or Windows. They've just created different derivatives or cloud-based software as a service iterations of those products. So I always do get worried when founders all leave a company. Really worried. If they leave and they're still somewhat engaged, that's cool. As advisors, that's cool. I like that. But when the founders leave a company, investors should usually run for the exit. And I wrote about this in a guest column on venturebeat.com in 2014. If you want, you can do a search for my name in VentureBeat. Yeah. All right. Next question is, can you please recommend one book for startups? Yeah. So I would recommend, this is going to sound out there, but I would recommend a book that all of you read, whether you're starting a company or not. And it's by Dale Carnegie. And the book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's kind of old school. It was written back in the 1930s, but Human nature has not changed since then. It will tell you how to deal with people, how to motivate people, how to get people to do what you want them to do, and just how to be a better team player and a better leader and mentor and motivator as well. Again, it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Check it out. Because business is about relationships first and product knowledge second. Your network is your net worth. You have to know how to deal with people. And the problem with big corporations is a lot of times people get promoted to manage people because they're good at a certain job function. For example, on a trading floor at investment banks, if you make a lot of money as a trader, you get promoted to manage other traders. But you might not be a good people person. You can learn these skills by reading that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And if you have time to read a second book by Dale Carnegie, I recommend reading a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And Dale Carnegie teaches you to live in day-tight compartments so that you don't worry about the past or stress out about the future. You just focus on today. Okay. Yeah. And Manas wrote, it's always day one and not one day. Yeah. I love that. And that was a t-shirt I wore a couple weeks ago too. And I have merch now on my website. Don't buy my merch yet though. I have to order it, or I have merch on YouTube, I should say. I have to order it myself to see if it looks good. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, it's a really weird question you wrote here, but how do you give a beautiful signature? Dude, my writing sucks. Like it's my dad's fault because he's a doctor, and doctors have bad handwriting. Thanks, Dad. Just kidding. Love you, Dad, if you're watching. Yeah. So what Steve Jobs did was this. He has a nice signature, and actually, if you open up the original Macs, there's on the inside there's signature from Steve Jobs on the metal, as well as the entire design team. But what Steve Jobs did was he dropped out of Reed College. Right? He didn't have a degree. And he went back to audit one class, which was on calligraphy. And he loved the artistic aspect of calligraphy and just fonts. And by the way, his favorite font is Helvetica. It's the best font you can use. I agree with that completely. And people don't realize this, but Apple was the #1 seller of printers back in the 1980s. Laser printers, remember that? Yeah. And so, and let me give you guys a really quick intro to fonts. And this will help you in business. I promise you. So when you use, and I'll open up Microsoft Word, never use a font that's a serif font. Okay. And so there's something called serif and sans serif. Okay. And a serif font means fonts with squiggly lines on them. Okay, so if you ever see the word serif and sans serif, I always want you to use the sans serif one, which means sans serif. Okay, so for example, here you can see the word sans. Use these fonts instead because a serif font has squiggly lines on the side. So let me actually go and show you. Let me see if I can find a serif one here. Probably easier for me to do this actually here. So serif font. Images. Yeah. Okay. So this here is a serif font. You see the little squiggly lines here? It makes it tough to read, especially on thumbnails for YouTube videos, etc. Okay. So you want to get fonts that aren't serif. These are all serif fonts, right? Tough to read, all that squiggly crap. So you want to get sans serif fonts. So here are the best sans serif fonts. Helvetica is one of them, by the way. So here are just some examples here. It's kind of tough to see. Delaware, these here. But Helvetica is the best one you can use. Helvetica, hell yeah. And that was actually Steve Jobs' favorite font and the basis for a lot of the marketing materials that Apple had. You'll see here with Helvetica, there's no squiggly lines on the side. And that's why Helvetica is the best font to use. And again, you want to use sans serif font, meaning without serif. Sans is French for without. Yeah. Hopefully that made font somewhat interesting. All right. Next question is, you loved coding. Can you make an app on your business? Yeah. I've thought about it. I've thought about it, but I don't think it's worthwhile. I think the app market is dying. I haven't seen anything new and innovative in the app market in several years. And I remember when the App Store first came out and Google's Play Store as well. There's always exciting new apps every week, but it seems like innovation has died. And for me, instead of creating an app for my company, I just have a mobile version of my website. Yeah. All right. Next question is from Carlos, which is, what is your best advice for countries like mine? I mean, it's very US dollar dependent and almost everything is imported. With the high rate exchange, everything is more expensive. Sorry for my English. My language is Portuguese, but I understand very well English. No, you wrote that perfectly. Please. Thank you. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And I'm not sure what country you're in. If you're in Brazil, for example, I have a lot of friends in Brazil where the import fees are ridiculously high on everything. And whenever my buddies come here to visit from Brazil, they always buy a couple of PlayStations or Xboxes and bring them home for their friends or to resell them, whatever it is, because the import cost is very, very high. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, but from a business perspective, I guess I would look at hedging very, very closely. So, but I don't really have any great thoughts on that. I'm so sorry. Yeah. All right. And Michael is saying, I've attended over 400 soccer matches in the United Kingdom, but my dream is to go to a baseball game, eat hot dogs, popcorn, and drink fizzy drinks like I have seen on television. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. If you visit San Francisco, man, I'll take you to a game here. Yeah. It'll be fun. But the Blue Jays have to be playing. The Toronto Blue Jays. That's my team. Oh, dude, if you get a chance, there's this great show you got to watch on Netflix. And it's called it's with Jason Sudeikis, and it's about a soccer coach that goes to England to manage a football team there. Jason Sudeikis, spell check, help please. Yeah, here it is. Here it is helping me. Yeah. So let's see his show here. It's really funny. You'll oh my god. Oh, okay. He doesn't have all right. I thought he had COVID. Yeah. All right, but he has a show that's on here it is here. It's called Ted Lasso. It's really, really funny. It's about this American football coach, that goes to England to coach a soccer team. It's hysterical. I think you'd love it. You'd love it. So check it out as well. He's very self-deprecating. That's one of the many reasons I love that guy. He's great. Yeah. Okay. Next question is your app store working properly? Yeah, I mean, it works fine. I don't go to the app store much anymore. There's really no new apps I want to download. And I think that I really do think that Apple and Google are oligopolies that have abused their power. And antitrust should step in. Because especially with Apple, like they launched this Apple Arcade product, which is, $5 a month, but the games suck, to be honest. But that's not really fair to push that out on consumers when you're supposed to have a fair marketplace. And I'm with Fortnite. And I love their commercial. Their take on the Ridley Scott 1984 commercial was brilliant. How the tables had turned. Yeah. Then you said, pardon me, Samsung launched a foldable phone. What are your thoughts? I haven't seen it yet, but I do subscribe to Marquise, who's my favorite vlogger, and I love his reviews. So take his advice, not mine. Yeah. And then the question here is, can I give other people's YouTube links on Udemy? I would read through the rules on what that is. I do have a bunch of links on Udemy if it's helpful to that particular course. Yeah, but read through the compliance rules, please. And you can always email trust@udemy.com and ask them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And yeah. Cool. All right. I've got one last question here, which is from Exposed TV, who's saying, "Hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. Likewise. Thanks a lot for these webcasts. They're really helpful. Thank you. What is your take on the dollar losing its reserve currency status that everyone is talking about?" Yeah. So I still do believe that the US dollar is a flight to quality. You know, when times are tough globally, you know, the value of gold goes up and so does the US dollar as well. It's all relative. It's all relative. Yeah. So for the foreseeable future, I still do think that the US dollar will be seen as a flight to quality. All right, cool. Next question here is from Manas, which is, what are you working on right now? Yeah. So I'm working on creating content for my MBA degree program. We start the 4th semester in 2 Mondays from now. So I'm still creating content. It's been a great year. It's been a lot of fun. I have a lot of wonderful students, and I urge you to take a look at the MBA degree program by going to my website, which is harounventures.com. Yeah, cool. And I am working on a Udemy course with one of my amazing students named Vital. So Vital is from Rwanda originally. He lives in Stuttgart now. And we're building a school, which I'm financing entirely, in Rwanda. And we're also making a course together, which is going to be out before Black Friday. And that course is the French language version of an entire MBA in one course. And Vital is heading it up. And I'm going to speak some French on it as well. I'm going to try my best. Yeah, and the proceeds from that course, the French version of an entire MBA in one course, are going to be to fund the school we're making in Rwanda and other schools we're going to make around the world as well. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then Manas wrote here, to be honest with you, I'm writing a script and it will be my 5th course. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun making courses. Yeah. And take please take my free courses on Udemy on how to make an online course so that you can work smarter, not harder. Again, it's free. Yeah. Cool. Excellent. So I want to thank you all for your time today. And I am so sorry about the technical issue we had at the very beginning of this webcast. It will not happen again. You'd think after 107 webcasts, I wouldn't make mistakes, but I do. The older I get, the better I was. I had a senior moment this morning, but it's okay because we did get the call done. So within 24 hours of this call, what's going to happen is one of my amazing employees named Hisham, what he's going to do is he is going to go through all the questions and put them in the description field of this YouTube video. So you can just click and get immediate access to the answer to all questions. And so if you subscribe to my vlog, I will see you tomorrow and every day. My vlogs drop every day at 9 a.m. If not, God bless you and have a great weekend. And I'll see you next Thursday and every Thursday starting at 8 a.m. my time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.